Hello, and welcome to What the Denmark, the podcast that takes an outside-in look at Danish culture. I'm Sam.
And I'm Josefine. Today we have dating experts on the show because we will be talking about dating Danes.
Something that a lot of our listeners are very interested in when it comes to life in Denmark is how do you actually date a Danish person? How do you sort of get involved romantically with Danes? And so here we're going to be talking a bit behind some of the theory, behind some of the practical elements of actually dating Danish people using our own examples.
Exactly. And we are actually very lucky to have a guest with us today as well, a real expert from Denmark. We have Line Kirsten Nikolajsen with us today. Welcome, Line.
Thank you.
And Line Kirsten, you present Giftekniv. And this is a radio show on DR.
Yeah, exactly. A dating show.
Dating show.
Yeah, we had like young Danes involved in the show who dated throughout a few episodes. They had to approach people face to face. They couldn't use dating apps because that's a really non-Danish thing to like approach people face to face. So we wanted to like
get people out of their comfort zone.
Exactly. Yeah. And because we think it's a shame that you don't go up to people on the street and say, "You look really nice. Do you want to go out for coffee or something?" Because people really look at you like you're a weirdo if you do that.
Well, this is actually, we'll maybe get onto this a little later.
I know. Yeah.
And so, Line, you're Danish.
Yep.
Danish partner.
Yep.
But you've also lived abroad.
Well, I lived in London right after at Danish high school, gymnasium, for a year, where I was very single most of the time. Had a boyfriend very briefly. It wasn't for me when I was 20. And then I lived in Australia in 2015 for half a year. Mm-hmm. I was an exchange student in Adelaide.
And even then, was it different dating in England and Australia than it was in Denmark?
Definitely. Like a huge difference.
Really?
Yeah. Especially about the thing going up to people on the street. I experienced that both in London and in Adelaide, that people, it sounds like they did it all the time. Like I'm so attractive. They always came up to me. That didn't happen. But I experienced it once in a while that people actually came up to me, not being drunk and saying, "You look really nice. Do you want to go out on a date with me, or can I have your number?"
What was your first reaction when that
I was like, what? And lost my words and my language. And I was like, I think I said yes to one after it happened a few times. Because the first time, I think I was so shocked. And I was just like, thank you, but no, thank you. I've got a boyfriend. And I didn't. But I was
just
so
had
scared.
to cope with it. And I was sort
like,
of
he must be a weirdo when he comes up to me like that.
It's interesting you say that. This seems to be the common theme about approaching people. And I will put the caveat here, whilst sober.
Yeah, because you can do it when you're drunk.
So weird.
Definitely.
It's like, your excuse.
That's what you do. I mean, that's how you hook up with people. That's being drunk, going up to them in a bar or in a club or something. And there you can say, "You look really nice. Can I buy you a beer or something?" But in Adelaide and London, it was different. It was really, really weird to experience.
It's interesting in Denmark because with this alcohol culture, then you might go up to someone, or a man might go up to a woman and say, "Oh, you look great, and can I have your number?" and so on. And if the person says no afterwards, they can sort of say, "Oh, it was just because I was drunk. It wasn't anything."
Yeah.
So it's almost like not, losing face.
Yeah.
Because you feel embarrassed about being rejected,
Yeah.
whereas there is not maybe as much fear about that rejection abroad, and therefore it's quite comfortable going up and saying.
Why do you think there's less fear of rejection abroad?
I think it is a thing that in Denmark you don't want to lose face. I think that's a massive thing, and that's why you don't go up to people, and that's why you don't really have a word for like saying that you're dating someone when you're not in a relationship yet. But I mean, that time up to you're in a relationship, that's just a weird time where you sort of keep it a secret because you don't know what to tell other people. And I experienced in London and Australia when I dated someone for a longer period, wasn't that long, but more than once, it wasn't a weird thing to say to your friend, "She's my date," or "I'm dating this girl," which was really like a big thing for me to say, because I was like, we're not in a relationship.
We have somehow defined ourselves.
Yeah, and I was like, we're not getting married. We're just seeing each other. We just drank beer once or coffee once. That wasn't weird. And other people didn't put anything into it. It was just like, oh, okay, you're dating. We know what that is. You're not in a relationship. You're not getting married. You're not having children tomorrow, you know?
So in Danish, what are the steps of a relationship?
I think you sort of keep it between you for a long time. And I mean, it depends on who you're with, but most of the guys I've dated, because I date guys, it has been... it's sort of like they want to keep it a secret. And there's sort of this game going on where you're like waiting for them to text and you can't text because you were the one who texted. There's all of these unwritten rules that are really, really frustrating. Instead of just saying, I really like you. Do you want to have another coffee?
See, I find that quite surprising because in a lot of other ways, Danes seem so practical and so straightforward in like so many other sort of forms of communication when it comes to, I don't know, business or whatever. Why is it that in this dating realm, suddenly things get a bit weird?
Because it isn't that practical, because there's feelings involved. And I think a lot of Danes are very scared of their emotions and their feelings and don't know what to do with them. I think we're getting better, but I think it is a huge issue compared to how people do it abroad.
I wonder whether it's also fear of rejection.
Yeah,
is this
I think
whole
so too.
fear that you will be rejected? And then I think Danes are very much either or. It's the same with friendships.
Yeah.
When you have friendships, it's very deep. And therefore, that interim, in-between stage, we're not very good at. And that's also why it would feel really wrong if someone says, ooh, to someone else, I'm dating her.
Yeah.
Because it's like, are we not serious about this? It would be like declaring that you're not important or special enough. And so we are very much either you're in or otherwise you're out.
Yeah, and when you're in that in-between or that middle stage, you don't really have a language for it. So it gets really complicated. And I've experienced that it takes a long time for people to say that they actually like you. You don't say that on the first date. You don't say that on the second date. Yeah. You can say, it was really nice. I liked your company.
Det var hyggligt.
Det var meget hyggeligt. But you don't say, oh, I'm just head over heels in love with you. You're amazing. I just love being together with you. That's way too much.
Yeah.
So you always take it down a notch. And I find it very frustrating. And actually, when I started dating my fiance, which he is now, we actually said we're dating when we went out because we're very social and we're in like the same business and stuff. So we went to theater premieres and we met our friends. We have a lot of friends in common, but had never met each other before we met. And people were asking, so what's up with you guys? Because we knew the same people. And there we actually said, we're just dating. But that's the first time I've been with a guy where we had like a straightforward language about it. That's the thing that was really nice about that relationship, that from the beginning, we were very straightforward about how we felt about each other. I always knew where I had him. And I think that's why it ended up being like where we are now. We've got a child together and we're engaged, you know, because that's our thing, being honest. But that's very rare, I find.
Yeah.
You often meet Danes who've been friends before they get together.
Yeah.
And that fits really well with this, either or concept, or the not being comfortable with dating. Because when you know each other really well, then it's quite easy to obviously take the step and understand that now you dive in properly and you say, this is serious.
I discovered from my own relationship with a lovely Danish lady that there is actually an extra step in the Danish perspective on relationships that I wasn't aware of. So she was then my girlfriend for maybe 6 or 7 months. And I don't know, we'd maybe been at a nice romantic dinner or something. And she goes, Sam, I'm in love with you.
Oh.
And I said, I love you too.
No, it's not the same.
And she was like, no, I'm in love with you. I was like, yeah, I love you too. Apparently there's this middle step.
There's a difference between the two.
See, to me, I'm in love with you, I love you, like basically the same thing.
Is that the same?
Basically, so like it's like when you watch movies and they go on this amazing date, like, oh my god, I think I love you. Like it drives my wife nuts because she's like, no, jeg forelsker dig.
Yeah.
Jeg elsker dig. Jeg forelsker dig. So can you explain what's this?
Yeah.
Perhaps different.
That's really funny because I thought that American people and English people were just crazy. Have you seen the show called Love is Blind on Netflix?
I've not, no. But,
all right. Okay. People meet, they like blind date each other into like boxes, and then they have to end up proposing to someone in that box without seeing them. And they always end up after a few days just talking together saying, I love you, you're the love of my life. And I've always been like, that's so exaggerated.
Yeah.
It's just way too much. What are they talking about? They can't love someone they haven't seen. And I think that's because you can be in love with someone. You can be forelsket in someone.
Because to love in Danish is like,
that's really big. Yeah, it's massive. It's like I love you. I mean, how can you love it? It's like loving your brother
love your
or
family,
your mother,
your closest friends, and
very
then
deep.
Yeah.
Maybe after a year, your boyfriend. Yeah. I mean, most people find it to be really, really fast if you say it after a month of dating.
Yeah.
You have to be in a relationship. It has to be defined. You can be dating, you can be going out, and then when you get in a relationship, you ask someone to be your kæreste, your dearest.
Yeah.
And so you've got this step where you have to ask someone, do you want to be my boyfriend, girlfriend?
Yeah.
You're not boyfriend, girlfriend before that step. If you're just dating, you're not boyfriend, girlfriend. And I think that's the thing. If you haven't defined your relationship, you can't say you love someone. That's just weird. Yeah. and even if you have defined it, you have to wait.
It would put off a lot of people because it would be extreme.
Yeah.
It would be like, obviously you have no idea what love is, because otherwise why would you say that you love me now?
Being in love is more like a feeling, and loving someone is more like a state of being, if you can say that.
Yeah.
Most people know how to describe how it feels being in love with someone. It's butterflies in the stomach. It's constantly thinking about the other person. And most people, Danish people, talk about being in love for real.
Okay.
And are you in love? Most people really doubt whether they're in love with someone. Do you agree? Like, I always hear my friends in the show as well. It was always a thing like, I don't know if I'm in love with him.
Yeah. Or I think I might be in love.
Yeah. Or it doesn't feel like the last time I was in love. It seems sometimes like Danish people, they don't know that it can feel different depending on who you're in love with. I mean, none of the times I've been in love with someone, it has felt the same way, but it sometimes feels like people expect it to feel exactly the same. And it has to feel like the first time you were in love, where it was butterflies and it was sleepless nights and constantly thinking about the other person. But for you, it's the same. I think that's very interesting.
Well,
but is it still?
Well, I was about to say, this is the thing of like, now there is this concept. Now you say it, it's like, well, there is this additional step. Or there is, like, now you, like, I can't disagree with those things you've said. It's just, I think in English, love is such a blunt word that means so many things.
Yeah.
In researching the episode, we sort of wanted to go and get some advice for people. People were seeking advice on how to date in Denmark. Because I think one thing that we've sort of touched on is this idea of it being a bit weird to go up and speak to a stranger, let's say, whilst sober.
Yeah.
And so people who in other countries, in just their day-to-day life, they might have people come up and say, hey, you look nice.
Yeah.
Do you want to go for a coffee? And that's not happening in Denmark. And they're like, is there something wrong with me? Like, what's happening here? We spoke to a dating expert called Marua, and she helps specifically expat women date Danish men.
Really?
That's her job. It's amazing. Like, her job is to do this. And her biggest advice was to just lean into your culture. It's a bit about what you're saying here. It's like, you've kind of got a free pass in terms if you're from elsewhere. So if there's a guy or girl who you quite like the look of, like, even if other Danes aren't doing it, you can totally do it. And just sort of be like, hey, I'm from America, I'm from the UK,
and they'll
I'm
find
from
it charming.
And you've kind of, you're allowed to do it. So I thought that was quite a good one in terms of just like, embrace your culture. You've got a free pass. Just start with where you come from and you look nice.
Yeah.
And off you go.
But be aware that people might think it odd if you come up to them on the streets. Though, why not try it? I mean, the only thing that can happen is that people might say, no thanks, or I'm dating someone already, like you did, Dina. But basically, I think that it's worth a try, but do be careful not being too pushy.
I think if it happened in Denmark, that someone came up to me in the street and it turned out that they were from abroad, I think that would soften the situation, definitely. Because then I wouldn't think of them as weird in the same way. I don't know why, but because they're sort of fish out of water.
Now, when it comes to dates, what's some advice that you have for what is a good first date, or what is a good date?
I've got an anecdote here from Australia, and I don't know if this is like a thing or if it was just this guy, but I dated a guy in Australia and we met on Tinder and then we texted and haven't met each other yet, but he's like, we're going on a first date, we have to find out what to do. And he was like, I'll come by and pick you up in my car and we can go up into the mountains and look over Adelaide. And I was like, what? I'm not getting into your car and driving up into the mountains, stranger. And I asked some of my friends, is this normal that people pick you up in your car? Because people my age in Denmark don't have a car. But you do have that in Australia because everything is far away. So people did have cars. And they were like, you can go up into the mountain. It's fine. It's not dangerous. I was like,
yeah, it sounds romantic in a way, but actually it stops you of having agency.
Yeah.
I mean, suddenly you're in that person's hands, and if you don't know them properly, that is that could be a danger.
And then he was like, I can come by your place, you can come by mine. I was like, no, not on the first date. I'm not going to your house. You're not coming home to my place. And I was like, let's meet on like neutral ground on this cafe and have a coffee.
Lots of eyewitnesses.
Exactly.
Yes.
That was my thought. And it is here in Denmark as well. I would never go home to someone on the first date or invite them to my place on the first date. Always neutral ground.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if you're using Tinder for like the more lightweighted dating, where it's just about a hookup, you might go to someone's place. But like if it's a regular date, you don't do that.
Yeah. And generally the advice seems to be informal when it comes to dating. Like no big grand gestures. Would you go out on a dinner on the first date?
Oh my God. I went on a date with a guy once in Denmark, a Danish guy who texted me. He saw me through a friend and he was like, put on your finest dress. We're going out. He just texted me and I was like, what is this? And I did it because my friend said he was a good guy and stuff. And we met on this wine bar, this really fine wine bar to have like a pre-dinner drink. I was 20. I wasn't old enough for this. And then afterwards we went to a restaurant here in Kødbyen called Gorillas, which is quite expensive. And we had like 10 dishes on the first date. And he paid everything. And it was so weird for me because I knew from when I met him, no, this is not going to happen. I'm not interested in this guy. But it was nice. It was very hyggelig. But I just knew we're not going anywhere. So it's so weird for me that you buying me this huge dinner, this really fine dinner, and it seems like you're expecting something in return now. So he was like, I'll follow you up to the bus. And I couldn't say no because I felt like, yeah, I can at least give him that.
Yeah.
He can follow me to the bus.
You felt indebted in a way,
Yeah.
and that's a problem with people paying for you or taking you out.
I would rather that we split. But he refused that.
He was adamant.
Yeah.
That he was,
And it was very untypical for a Danish date. I've never experienced anything like that.
Was he much older than you?
No, we're same 2 years maybe.
Yeah.
But he just did it like that. And now, I know that he's a guy who is a bit over the top. But I would never expect a date like that. You don't go out for dinner dates. That's something you do in movies.
Or abroad. I mean, that would
abroad.
be totally normal.
Yeah.
I mean, now I mainly dated foreigners and having been, young abroad. And there you'd normally always ask people out for dinner, for the theatre, for the cinema, for that sort of thing. So totally normal to do that.
I mean, cinema's okay on like second or third date, but the first date has to be like short interval of time. Like it has to be a walk with a coffee. Like the classic is walking around the lakes with a coffee. It's almost a meme now in Denmark because everyone's doing it. And you don't want to do it because
it's like a park in the center of Copenhagen, a beautiful sort of area where you can manage it in quite a short amount of time. So if it's terrible, you can...
And you can sort of, there are various intervals. Like if it's good, you can do the long routes. But if it's bad, I need to just...
You got like 3 or 4 legs.
Yeah.
And if you got 4 legs, it was a good date.
Yeah.
Or you can keep circling them.
Yeah, exactly. But I think like the classics are walking with a coffee at a cafe, beer in a bar.
Yeah.
Alcohol.
Walking in a cemetery. We've had this one as well.
On Nørrebro, yes. Yeah.
We have a very beautiful cemetery.
It is
I actually
beautiful,
remember a friend who was foreign and he was he's Italian. He was invited to go for a walk and he was horrified that this woman was taking him into the cemetery.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
But he was like, why would you do that? That's really odd. I mean, this is a date, a cemetery.
You thought the mountains was bad. You're to a cemetery.
One step closer.
I think if you said that in Australia, I would find it weird as well. But I know this is more like a park.
Yes.
So when people go there, it's quite cozy.
Yeah. So this whole thing of like splitting the bill. So the expectation is that everyone pays for themselves. But should you offer or is that a bit much?
I mean, it's always weird when people do it because it ends up being like this MasterCard dance where you're like, who's doing the paying?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always offer it, and or if we're going out for a beer, I will definitely say, I'm giving you this, you can give me the next. You know?
Yeah.
So you split it in that way because I think it's quite uncharming as well to do like you can just mobile pay me when it's 30 kronas or something for a coffee. So I would always prefer to do like you can pay the next time or the next coffee, and then if that's not a next time, it's fine.
So
So sometimes it always ends up being one person paying, but if it's like a dinner or something, I would definitely prefer that you split. Yeah.
And then you've mentioned that sort of after the date, there's this sort of game of like who texts who, all this sort of stuff. Does that happen here in Denmark as well?
Yes, I hate it, but it happens big time.
Okay,
and it's really sad. But in relationships, it's sort of expected that it's the guy who texts first. I don't know why, but most of my friends expects the guy to be the one texting first. But you give him like a window of, say, 2 days. If he hasn't texted, you'll text him. But then the odds aren't really that great. If it's been 2 days without.
And then he's probably thinking, I had a great time, but I don't want to seem too keen.
Yeah.
So I don't want to.
Exactly. And that's where it goes wrong because that is what happens. Like, I think most of the relationships that ends up not being in Denmark is because of that misunderstanding. And we saw that in our show as well, that people just assumed that the other person didn't want to go any further. Whereas in the homosexual relationships, especially with the guys, they were way more straightforward with each other. Yep, way more straightforward. I think we can learn a lot from them. But I think they've got like a more straightforward way of being with each other as well. And I mean, that's in dating, that's in sex, that's in like how they get involved in general. Like there's no funny games there. Maybe there is sometimes, but most of the time I experienced that they were very quick to say interested, not interested, or we can have sex, but I don't want to date you. Yeah.
And I would say that's a great thing about Denmark. We have a very old homosexual dating scene, which means that you can be very comfortable being homosexual and, you know, finding partners here.
Yeah.
It's probably much easier than in many other parts of the world, to be honest.
But it's more difficult for them to go up to people on the street because you never know. And you don't know if people will take it well if you ask them out.
Actually, our producer, Andreas, he mentioned someone, either he knows them or he follows them on TikTok. I forget which one it is. But she is interested in women. Yeah. And she's from Germany. And she was saying in Germany, she's got quite a good gaydar. Like she can kind of pick up who's interested, who's not. She said coming to Denmark, it was just like way out. Just suddenly had no concepts of like who's interested, who's not interested. And yeah, that was her TikTok, was basically just being like, where is everyone?
Yeah.
Like, how do we,
But that's a problem for a lot of homosexual people I know. And that was what we found in the program as well, that our homosexual guests always found it very difficult to find a scene where they could ask people out because they had to like find a bar where it was like a bar for homosexual people, or they had to go to a place where they knew it's always homosexual people coming here. There's a cafe in Copenhagen called Café Oscar, which is on the Rainbow Place, Regnbuepladsen.
The Rainbow Square.
The Rainbow Square, yeah, I think it's called, yeah. And he went there because then he knew, like, if people come here, they might expect that someone will come up to them.
They won't be offended, at least. So therefore there's more openness.
Because that was his thing. He found it real difficult to go to people on the street because he was like, I never know if it's someone who really doesn't like people like me that I'm asking out. And most of the time, luckily, the guys he ended up asking out were really kind and just were very flattered that he came up to them, because most people are nice, thank God. Yeah. And they were like, oh, I'm so flattered and honored, but I'm sorry, I'm into girls, you know? So yeah, it is more difficult, and that's why Grindr and Tinder is huge when you're homosexual, because they can actually find people without having to go to a bar or my homosexual friends who are girls also have a really rough time because they never know who they can go for. But they tell me that they actually find it easier to just go up to anyone because way more girls than boys have an open window, and they're like, actually, I'm into boys, but
got a special class.
Yeah, I'm not entirely rejecting this idea. I think that's very interesting. Like more girls are more keen on trying it out than the boys are.
If listening to our conversation with Lena has got you thinking, maybe I'd like to move to Denmark and date a Dane, then we can maybe help you with half of that. Whilst there isn't yet an official policy by the Danish government to attract internationals to move here by using the wit and charm of their citizens, there is a drive to get more international people to move here and work. Being a small country, there's only so much tech, engineering and other talent that's available, and lots of aspiring Danish companies are actively trying to hire internationals. These companies typically work in English, often are doing something interesting, and working for them means you get to live in one of the happiest countries in the world, and perhaps also meet your future partner. If listening to What the Denmark has piqued your interest in the country, then go check out the State of Denmark's website. There, you can sign up for job alerts from Danish companies looking for internationals and read more about what your everyday life in Denmark could be like. Head to www.state-of-denmark.com/WTD. The link is in the show notes as well. Now, back to the show.
Sort of let's assume that we've now had people are dating.
Yep.
They have become kærester, they've become boyfriend and girlfriend. One thing that has shocked might sound a bit strong, something that people have commented on, and again, this is typically in heterosexual relationships, is this concept of gender roles and how Danish men, on the whole, there's more equal divide in chores, let's say at home, in terms of like men and women will both do the cooking and the cleaning. And it's less sort of guys and girls.
That's funny because we've got an idea about that, but I don't know if it is actually like that. Because I think we like to say that, but most of the relationships I know, it's still the woman doing most of the
stuff.
Yeah.
Even if the guy doesn't think so.
Yeah, exactly.
Because they might feel that they're doing half. But
right now, a lot of people are talking about the mental load, especially when you're new to parenthood and you're becoming parents. You talk about women have a massive mental load. It's not a Danish thing. This is like a thing worldwide, I guess, or in the Western world at least. Which is it is sort of that women still do most of the chores at home, and they have a lot of mental work about how to make this family function practically.
They've probably got like a mental list of the shopping list.
Yes.
And like what's being cooked for dinner and all these other things.
And the family birthdays, who should be invited along to parties. I mean, all of those mental things.
You're thinking
chores,
ahead all the time.
Yeah, and the planning. Yeah. They also are sort of expected to plan to remember the mother-in-law's birthday or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, those sorts of things.
And then the woman ends up being like this general at home, like handing out all the things that has to be done, and that's not nice. Like no one wants to be the house general. Yeah. You want it to be equal, but I really doubt that it is.
Yeah.
Also from a kid's perspective, so men actually do take more paternity than in many other countries, but still it is generally the women managing the children's extracurriculars. It's the women that take the communication with the school. And until not long ago, actually, it was only women who would get messages from the school in relation to their children. And actually then many fathers were upset because they felt they were not being communicated to, and particularly if they were divorced. They also wanted to know what was going on with their children. But there is still a tradition for women taking most of these chores. So I think it's changing slowly, hopefully.
Yeah, and I guess that most men would think that they do a lot of chores at home.
This is so bad because I'm like, I'm pretty sure I do 50% of it.
Yeah, I know my boyfriend would say, I do the cleaning and I do the laundry, and I wash our dishes. But it's more like it adds up for the women because we just do more things at home in most relationships.
And actually, I was speaking to a friend, Paul. He was saying that when he was with his boyfriend and they just moved in, there was no expectations on gender roles. And so it was just really sort of just organically happened.
Yeah.
But he was saying that side of it was quite nice, basically.
It must be really, really nice.
But I think what's quite interesting is that actually, if you look at the World Economic Forum, they did do this survey every year, which is the gender gap survey. And actually, we don't fare particularly well in Denmark.
No.
So we're number 32. We used to be number 14. And if you look at the other Nordic countries, they are all up in the top 5. So now, interestingly, I was in South Africa before I came back to Denmark. And there, I definitely experienced that there were some spaces where men and women were more equal, for example, in terms of, the leadership position in the employment market.
Yeah.
But when it came to the home, I definitely felt that women were doing much more. However, in England, I felt actually the opposite was the case. So both England and South Africa is above Denmark on this particular survey. So it is interesting. I would say in some areas, we're probably a bit more progressive, in others we're not.
I think we like to think of ourselves as being very progressive and very equal, but we are not, I think. I think that it's really sad, but yeah.
Yeah, and I think that mental workload, as you talk about, because you don't see it, it's invisible. So a lot of these trends or situations are invisible. And that's also why it's difficult. I mean, if you have all of this going on in your head, most men, they might think, oh, I'm working really hard. I put in a wash in the machine and I hung up the laundry and I've also done some hoovering. But meanwhile, while the woman is maybe doing just as much as that, but also thinking about, okay, when are we doing the next birthday party for the kids? What should we buy for it? How do we make sure that all the family are invited to the right occasions and so on. So all of those things that just somehow build up, but no one can see them.
Yeah.
The first episode we did was about double or single duvet. So obviously double duvet is a big thing abroad. And so I remember Sam, and this was such a surprise to me because I know a lot of people think it's really odd that we have single duvets in Denmark. My husband also thought it's odd. Yeah, because you have it to yourself and it's a single duvet. What's the matter with that? But actually, Sam, he sort of almost felt that was something that came in between you and your girlfriend at the time.
It was as if. So the moment was we go in to the room. There's 2 duvets, and I was like, "Is there something wrong, honey? Like, are we going to break up? Like, because why would we not have this double duvet?"
That's funny.
Yeah, isn't that funny?
My boyfriend had a double duvet when we met each other, and I was like, "That's not going to happen."
Yeah.
I've got 2 and you can get one. I'm not sleeping with that thing. I want my own. Yeah. That's really funny.
Yeah.
And it's not because you don't love him. It's basically just because you like to have it that way. And that's how we've been brought up.
I want to have a good night's sleep, you know?
So practical. Anyway, I'm now a convert. So I'm now like a truther. Really? When I go back to the UK, I'm just like, single duvets.
But we always end up sleeping under the same duvet in the beginning. I fall asleep on his chest. So we should have a double duvet. Yeah. But I'm just like, no, I want my own in the night because you're gonna complain that I steal the duvet from you if I don't have my own.
We're so lucky to have Frida in the studio. Yeah. And Frida is 20 years old, and I'm just thinking that I quite like to hand over to a younger person.
So Frida, can we have a quick background on your current dating status or situation?
Yes. My status has actually changed quite recently. I was in a very serious relationship for 3 years, and I lived with my boyfriend. We split 2 months ago, so I'm quite new to the whole dating scenery and haven't really experienced that before. I've always been the type to be in a relationship. I've always been in a relationship since I was 14, I think.
Yeah.
But this one was definitely the most serious one, and we lived together since we were 18. So that's sad that we split, but we're on good terms. So that's also nice. Yeah.
And it opens up for all sorts of new opportunities.
Yeah, it's scary and it's something new, but definitely also exciting to be able to experience some new parts of life. Yes.
But what is your perspective on all the stuff we've been talking on here?
I've been thinking a lot about what you were saying about Danes not being that direct and not wanting to say too much or confess their love for someone too soon. And I think that's quite interesting, and I think it does have a lot to do with not wanting to lose face, and also just the fear of rejection that you talked about. But I think it's too bad, actually. I think it's very sad that people are not more comfortable talking about their feelings, because it would be a lot easier if you didn't have to think about not texting first or having to wait a certain amount of time before texting back, getting back to someone. That would make things a lot less complicated, I think.
And do you find that your friends are experiencing this as well?
Definitely.
There's also these games and stuff going on.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Even though I've been in a relationship, I have heard a lot about my friends' dating life. And that's definitely something that they experience a lot. People not being clear and honest about what they want. And for young women, especially, that's who I talk to the most. They find it very frustrating, because I also think that fear of rejection is one thing, but also fear of rejecting someone else. I think people hold back because they don't want to ruin the mood. They don't want to make people sad. And I think it's important to talk about the fact that sometimes it's better to just know. If you've been on, 2-3 dates, then it probably won't hurt that much if you're not interested after all.
And do you think boys are worse in that way than girls?
Well, I think so. I'm not an expert, but I do think so, yes.
No, but I've experienced the same.
Yeah.
Like, boys tend to be
afraid of hurting someone's feelings.
And then they end up staying in it for way too long.
Yeah, and
then
that's just torture.
It's
just tell me what you want,
Yeah.
and let's move on from there.
Girls are more direct,
Yeah,
I think.
I think so too.
And just being more like, that's really rough to say, but you care a bit more about other people's feeling, I think. Yeah, you actually take care of the other person by telling them that you're not that into them and you have to end it there.
But I think it's what's really interesting. We're missing a language
Yeah.
for love. We're missing that language for dating in Denmark. And we actually have had the same debates in society about mourning and sorrow, that we're very bad also at talking about or talking to people about their feelings when they've lost someone. And that means people, they can feel very alone with it. And just the same way we actually are struggling here to verbalize if we're not feeling the love for someone else or feeling in love, to use those words, with someone else.
Yeah.
And often they, like, as you say, if you dated 2 or 3 times, the other person might not get that sad if you end it, like, or they'll get over it in a few days.
Yes, and that's just better than letting someone wait. Or I think it's a misconception that it's better not to tell someone.
Yeah.
It's better not to, because you can let someone down softly and nicely and put it in a way that's not hurtful.
Yeah.
And I think as soon as someone compliments us or shows you that they actually like dating you, people get scared off. And that's so weird, you know? Instead of just saying, that's really nice, I really love that you like that about me. Let's see where this takes us, because I like you, but I don't know yet if I want to be in a relationship with you.
Yeah.
And it just, honestly, that just feels like that is what the Danish way would be.
Yep.
Just like based on everything else in Denmark, of just like, yep, well, we're a couple, but we both like sleeping, so we're going to have separate duvets. Or, yep, we're in this meeting, yep, you're the intern, but I don't mind, what's your opinion, etc. That just sort of the way you were able to just like really matter-of-factly explain it then, I just would assume that's how the Danes would do it. And it's just so strange that there's this sort of, and if it's this
it doesn't
sort of
translate to love.
Yeah.
It doesn't translate to feelings for some reason.
This sort of, when it's,
it's
when
not practical anymore.
All those other things are almost like logical, like separate duvets, logic, win.
Yeah.
But when it comes to like based on emotions, there's just, maybe it's because Danes talk less about emotions, that there's just this less familiarity with it. And so it's just like, oh God, let's try and avoid it.
But maybe that's also part of the explanation that Danes tend to get together with their friends, their best friends, because they've already learned how to talk about their feelings and communicate with them very well. The only relationships I've ever been in, they both of them were with my former best friend.
Really?
Yeah.
But it's funny because that doesn't make any sense to me. Because because it makes sense that you ended up with them. It's not that, but that people end up with their friends because we've got that not going back thing. So I would think it was a huge offer to like getting into a relationship with a good friend, because then I would know if this relationship ends, then it's also friendship over. And I would hate that because I really like you as a friend. Do you know what I mean?
And that's a huge risk.
Yeah.
And I think both of the times I was very aware of that, and it was also something that we communicated about before getting into a relationship. But we just, I don't know, did it anyway and took the chance. And luckily, I still have both of them, both of my former boyfriends in my life. And I think it's hard and it takes a lot of work if you want to go back to being friends, and it's never going to be the same because you can't really, I think it's true that you can't really go back.
But maybe it's easier to lose face when it's a friend. And I mean, love is risky. You have to take risks if you want love. And that's a huge problem in Denmark as well. We're not that willing to take risks. We want it to be safe and make sense and be logical. You know?
And it feels more safe when it's someone you already know and someone you know will respect your feelings and maybe let you down softly if it's not working for them.
If it's someone you just met on Tinder, they've gotten...
they don't owe you anything.
No, exactly.
But you can, I think, expect your friend to treat you well.
And I think that we also have this thing about not wanting to make a fuss
Yeah.
in Denmark. You know, we think that's embarrassing to make a fuss. And therefore we keep a lot to ourselves probably and try to keep on the brave face instead of talking about those emotions. And that again comes back to then a lack of development in our vocabulary for talking about emotions. And I think that a lot of research shows that actually the way to fix, you know, a broken heart is to talk.
Yeah.
We need to talk. So if we don't manage to talk because we don't want to be seen as fusspots, then, you know, it's going to have an impact on your mental health. One topic we should discuss is the foreign perception of Danes. Because now, ahead of the show, Sam, you shared some articles and some videos that we could have a look at to get inspired, which I thought was really interesting. But I was actually surprised to see the way Danes came across as quite loose and relaxed. I think a lot of them, they say, okay, it's very easy to just go and meet someone and have sex and then go on a date afterwards. I thought that's an interesting perception because that's not what I see.
Yeah, I think the one was this book called Sex Before Coffee, which was a guide to Scandinavia, dating in Scandinavia. And it came from a video where someone was sort of, have you any tips for dating in Denmark? And this one girl who was on there, and she said, get really drunk, we'll go and have sex, and then the morning after we'll go for a coffee to see if we actually like each other.
Yeah.
And I think that sort of became the meme for
That's funny.
For it.
I just don't want people to be disappointed when coming here because they might find that it doesn't always work that way.
I think it has a lot to do with alcohol.
Yeah.
So, yeah,
you don't just have sex with people sober.
It's not
when
like
you're heterosexual.
You can't go to someone at a cafe and ask them to have sex with you. Please don't do that.
No.
That would not work in Denmark. But I think it's very true that it can happen at a bar or at a club.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
One night stands is a huge thing, you know?
Are you then likely to get to know each other the day after, and could it turn into a relationship, or would it just be that one night stand?
Depends on the mood. I mean, I would always expect it to be a one night stand. I would never expect anything more from it, unless it's someone communicating very well. Because I have experienced that, where he was like, we should do this again. And I was like, yeah, we should. That was nice. And then we went out for coffee and we saw each other for, like, he's my friend today.
So if someone is coming here looking for love, they should definitely not expect that is the easiest way to go about it, to go and get into bed with someone. And then basically the next day there's an opportunity to start a proper relationship.
Yeah.
Well, it's
actually, you could... I mean, you can meet people in a bar. I met my boyfriend at a party, and we ended up kissing, and We talked the entire night. And when we got to the point where we had to go home, we decided to go to my place. But we were both like, we're not having sex like to each other, and agreed on that. And I think because of that, we ended up dating, because that sort of signaled, I'm not just looking for someone to hook up with. I actually think you're really nice and I like talking with you. So if you find someone in a bar, that's definitely possible. It's a nice way to meet people. But I think you have to make it very clear. Like, if we go home together now, it's not to have sex, because it's because I like you and it's because I want to talk to you and I don't want this night to end. You can have breakfast at my place, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So I think it is possible, but
That's nice.
Yeah, but it's the rare occasion, you know? But I think Tinder and all the other dating apps has been like a blessing for a lot of Danes, because it gives us the perfect opportunity to not talk to anyone and just do it online and behind a screen, you know. And that was why we did the dating show as well, Giftekniv, because we wanted to get out of that, because it's quite sad that we can't walk up to each other in the street and talk to each other.
Yeah,
I want that back.
Yeah, I think that's too bad.
Yeah.
Yeah,
It's a much nicer way of meeting people.
Yeah, and it feels more authentic.
Yeah.
And more. I like that it's a bit risky, because it shows that someone's actually interested and willing to put themselves in a vulnerable situation if they come up to you and give you a compliment. It doesn't have to be you're the most beautiful person in the world.
No.
That would probably
Please
also
not.
creep me out a bit. Please don't do that.
Yeah.
But I would be flattered if someone came up to me and gave me a nice, subtle compliment, like, I like your style, I like your clothes, something like that. Because
I just really want to know what your name is.
Yeah, I just really,
That could be a thing.
I just really want to know your name, or can I have your number? You look really nice. Maybe we could go out sometime. I don't think that's creepy.
No.
Actually, not if you put it in the right way, and that's probably easier said than done. But you can approach someone also in Denmark without it being creepy, I would say.
Definitely.
Yeah.
And I agree, Frida. I think vulnerability is, a strength.
Mm-hmm.
I think it shows that you're a really brave person.
Yeah, and
And-
it's really charming, I would say.
It is.
And we need a bit of that bravery in Denmark, because we're too shy.
Bring on the bravery and the vulnerability.
Exactly. Don't do like us.
Yeah. And use the fact that you are foreign, and that you can actually get away with something that you might not be able to get away with as a Dane.
And it's exciting for us.
So, Line, if you had to give a foreigner who's coming to Denmark, potentially looking for love, some advice, what would it be?
I think the first would be go for it. Don't get scared off by our closed offness, what do you say, or like our shyness. Just do it, because we do want to get to know you, even though it doesn't seem like it. And 2 is don't be too over the top. Even though we like the idea of it, we don't like it on ourselves. So just be subtle when you give a compliment. It's more than enough to say, I just really want to get to know your name, because you look so nice. And 3, don't do the whole dinner thing on the first date. Do a nice and quick one where you can get out quickly. And walk around the lakes if you're in Copenhagen. Or in the cemetery.
That was really great advice.
Yes.
I think that will help a lot of people out there looking for love in Denmark, for sure.
Cool. Line, thank you so much. And also thank you, Frida.
Yeah.
Thank
So
you.
we should, Frida, you've been, I think we said, researching this episode, and we're also here today. So
Yeah.
glad you
Thanks
could
for having
join
me.
us on the mic. Great
Thank
stuff.
you.
Cool.
It's
Thanks
been
so much,
really
everyone.
great to have you all. Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of What the Denmark. In the show notes, we have included various links to things we have spoken about. If you'd like to learn more about what we do, then head to whatthedenmark.com and follow us on Facebook and Instagram by searching for What the Denmark.
Thanks as always to Andreas Grønning for producing and Tevin Sudi for editing the show.
As always, time for our Danish sign-off. Vi ses næste gang.
You've also got the get out clause.
Yeah.
In the same way that Danes have this get drunk to have the get out clause.
Yes.
You kind of have always got a get out clause. You can be like, oh, I don't know, I'm not from here.
Yeah.
So I'm just.
Oh no, I don't speak English.
That's a good one, Sam.
Yeah.